Welcome to My Period Stories with me, Funke Treasure. We come at you again with period stories from across the world. You know that on My Period Stories, we talk about menstrual health, menstrual hygiene, reproductive sexual rights, and more. We bring you amazing people with fascinating stories to tell. If you're ready, let's do this after the break. You're watching My Period Stories with me, Funke Treasure. We're going to be talking about My Period Stories essay competition again because we're talking with one of the judges of the competition. So today we'll be speaking with Morenike Taire, who has 20 plus years experience working in research and journalism, where she's gained quite a reputation of being one of the most versatile female journalists practicing in Nigerian newspaper publishing and the media. She currently serves as the group woman editor of Vanguard Media, where she champions the cause of women through the various platforms of the organization. She also sits on the editorial board of the Vanguard, and she's contributed to various local and global publications and broadcast stations. In fact, she's anchored book publishing projects under numerous imprints. It's my pleasure to have Morenike Taire join us today on My Period Stories to talk about not just period stories, but, a larger part of what we do in the media. So I welcome you again, Morenike Taire. Welcome to My Period Stories.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's such a pleasure to have you here.
It's lovely to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am thrilled, and I'm just saying the truth. Good to have you here. So you were one of our judges, and you're not a rookie to judging essay competitions. I mean, you're one of the judges of the endometriosis essay competition. Talk to us about that one first.
The endometriosis essay competition is a thriller. You have girls in secondary school writing about stuff that I would expect that only a medical doctor would know about. And it's so difficult to choose who the winner is.
That's the most difficult part of it, because when there's all sounding so articulate and brilliant, how do you guys do it, judges?
You just have to love it.
And then how do you choose eventually? I mean, how do you feel when I could have chosen this one or maybe this one? Let me just close my eyes and choose.
It's so funny because sometimes you just see one or two girls that will just come across that everybody just loves. And then you're judging and you love her. And then when you see the other people's scores, you're thinking, this one also scored her best. This one also scored her. Obviously, she must be the best.
Right. So we had one of the guests, the girls who was runner-up for the endometriosis competition on this show. She was so brilliant. In fact, from the feedback we got, her episode of this podcast was one of the best that people could relate with. That was really good. I met mothers, other girls wrote in. In fact, we got feedback from Cameroon saying that listening to her, they now understand endometriosis. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I mean, they're a really lucky generation. I mean, in our days, we heard endometriosis and we thought it's...
What was that? I didn't even know about it until I was way
They used to use it, as another word for period cramps.
Yeah.
Whereas it's something completely different. They won't be in the kind of trouble we were in.
Yeah, because they're coming on with knowledge and insight into these things already. So let's come to the My Period Stories essay competition. You're one of the judges, and I know that we went back and forth with the shortlisted girls at some point. Talk to us about that.
Actually, it was so much fun for me because when I get into the stories, so it's usually when in a quiet mood, and then I get into the stories. It's like I'm transported into the past.
That's the word.
The kind of stories we only shared in the bathroom or in girls groups, and some girls are actually sitting and writing them. Well done, Funke,
Thank
for
you.
for allowing that to happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What you said, instructive. The kind of stories were told in the bathrooms, in girls' groups. We never had the courage to come out with it because there's a lot of silence around menstruation stories. And having to do that, it gave me too some kind of satisfaction that we're letting the girls own the stories. But if at all, we told the stories on their behalf, we advocated on their behalf. So letting them tell the stories too was for me gratifying.
Oh, absolutely so. I was just be transported into their world, and imagine what's going on through their minds, because it's gone on through our minds as well.
Right, right. I know that before the judges collated did the shortlisting, you particularly liked Clisti Vitonya's story about getting stained in church. She eventually became the second place winner of the Period Stories competition. Talk to us about what fascinated you about Clisti Vitonya.
Well, but probably because of the setting. The church setting is supposed to be a space where it's supposed to be a safe space. It's supposed to be a place where everybody should feel safe, welcoming, understood. And here she was, being treated like something from outer space because she was doing something that was natural. Yeah, I found that really, really fascinating.
I found it fascinating too. I mean, you hear all kinds of period stories in the market, in school. I'd never, heard the one from a church. So that was really, eye-opening for all of us, and it was such an entry that opened up a different conversation entirely. Also, we had this other young girl from Akwa Ibom who wrote about how she didn't know that the pads were not supposed to be used every day. She was starting for the first time, and she had this encounter with her mother, who said, "But what's going on with the supplies?" And she said, "Oh, I'm still using it." "Ah, you're still using it? How?" So that threw up the mother-daughter communication in menstrual health. Talk to us about that.
Well, again, thanks to people like you, the communication space has opened up. And it's not just mother-daughter now. It's also auntie, niece,
That's right.
grandmother, daughter, even father, daughter. I know people, men, who have had conversations about menstruation with their children now. It could never have happened in our times.
That's right. It could never. We didn't even broach the subject because it was taboo topic for us.
But talking about that story, we can laugh about it now. But in those, if you don't know, you don't know. And that's why it's so important to communicate. There is this tendency that when the child or the girl child starts her period, the mom would have a conversation with her. And then it's likely to end there, especially when maybe she's in boarding house or the mom is very busy. So it's completely essential for that conversation to continue. We can laugh about those things now, but we made worse mistakes in the past. I mean, what you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
And you touched on boarding house. I've spoken with some mothers on the audio podcast. You remember that we did the audio podcast first.
Yes.
And some of them said, well, they were not broken into it as well. Nobody broke them into it. So they sort of feel that some of the girls should just know what to do. And then some of them, we found out, are shy about talking to their daughters about it. They don't have the experience. you know.
I find that very, very strange.
No, there are. I had a guest who said my mother didn't tell me anything, and we also have a guest who's coming up who said in the northern part of Nigeria, mothers don't tell you anything. A lot of mothers.
So how are you supposed to know?
You just start, and she had a personal story to tell. So these are the cultural barriers to the silence around period conversations, that mothers are passing on this culture of silence. And so even when they tell you about periods, they say, okay, you've started, just don't go near men. And that's where it ends. We had someone on this podcast who said the lack of menstrual hygiene affected her when she got married, because then she realized she had infection when she was young, and she's now dealing with infertility.
Oh, it has there are so many connotations. There are diseases that are linked primarily to the use of maybe infected pads,
Right.
Tampons. There's a disease called TSS. That's
the shock one.
Yes,
Yeah.
the toxic shock syndrome, which is associated with tampon use, and even these days with pads use. There are people who react to some chemicals in some pads,
That's
and
right.
in actual fact, it's actually essential to try out different pads before settling in on one. So all these conversations have to be had, and they have to be continuous. Women's health traditionally is something that's underplayed. People just talk about health. When it comes to women's health, it has to be a completely different conversation. They talk about what do you have when you're getting older?
The menopause.
The menopause, and that affects every woman. And there isn't, if you have your national health insurance scheme, I doubt if there is it covers menopause. I doubt if it covers period issues, and that's because those conversations have not reached where they're supposed to reach.
Yeah, which is why I want to commend us, the media, for the work we've done in menstrual health, and I'm returning to that in a bit after this break.
Thank you very much. At some point, I want to appreciate you for considering me for the nomination by Morenike. I enjoyed myself thoroughly, and it's also amazing that the participants, who sent in their stories, were students from public schools. Going forward, I'm glad to hear there is a future plan to progress this and to even explore maybe not just this thing but other things to encourage our students and to showcase the fact that when some people say there is hope, there's actually hope. There's actually.
You're still watching My Period Stories with me, Funke Treasure. We've been talking about SPMC's essay competition on periods, and we have one of the judges with us on the set today. About 1.8 million students took the last UTME in Nigeria. That's the examination that takes them into the university. And 1.4 million students scored less than 200. And that's about more than 77%. It's baffling. So this generation is all over TikTok and Snapchat, dancing and jumping on trains. Ngongo, wow. But then again, this generation writing this essay grew up in a smart, world, unlike us. This is a generation of, they say generation Gen Z, and then they say Gen Alphas. Chat GPT is what they do quite naturally. The first thing they think about when they're thinking about essays is to go to Chat GPT. How do we aid their learning process? How do we help them to do things without AI, without relying too much on AI? Because I think it's not helping that they already immersed in AI to think through. It's critical thinking, isn't it?
Yes. Well, actually, it's in the hands of us, the older generation. We have to expose them to real life situations. We have to. So it's like us when we do physics or we do chemistry, or back in the day, even computer science without computers or without. So
Yeah.
it's just something that you can't relate to. In their own case, what we are telling them is what they can't relate to. We have to make these things real to them. We have to make the world real to them. We have to see, let them see why, going after their own experiences and learning from the experiences of others is the reason ChatGPT and AI and all of them exist. AI doesn't exist in isolation. It exists to improve humanity, to enhance the things that already exist.
Enhance. Yes.
So if you don't use it right, it's going to destroy humanity. And we don't want humanity destroyed.
Yeah, but I recall quite vividly the conversation we had. You're like, okay, well, all of these girls who wrote really fantastically, we should subject them to, what did you call it then, to some test to know whether they did it with the help of AI.
Yes, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. There are tools with which to do that. There are actually AI tools by which you can check if people used ChatGPT and other AI tools. So it's actually pretty straightforward. And another thing that's common with when you use ChatGPT is you see 2, 3, 4 essays. They're looking exactly the same, and obviously if it's about personal experiences, it's very unlikely that
it will be totally
completely different. I mean, the subject matters, and another thing with AI and ChatGPT is that it's always not real. It's always abstract. It doesn't apply to anybody. So unless you apply it to yourself.
I mean, it goes on and on and on, and there is no Sade, Tunde,
exactly.
Chioma in it. It's just
straight. Exactly.
I get you. So, let's return to the media now, because I remember that I said I was going to talk about how people like you have given visibility to menstrual health issues. I was saying the other day that in the past, nobody knew about World Menstrual Hygiene Day. But now, because more media people are involved in celebrating the day, literally searching out people like me who are in the space, we now have visibility, we have traction, and people like me can also start looking at normalizing the period conversation. So talk to us about what you do in your role as editor, woman editor of a newspaper.
So I always like to say that the 2000s is the millennium of the women. It's the millennium where women's conversations took over. It's the time when, especially in the media, where we got tired of reporting about food, how to make a menu, or even fashion. I mean, we want conversations about things that actually affect us. And I am happy to lead that conversation in the print space. It's not easy all the time to get men interested in what you want, what you think women want to read about. But what women want to read about is different from what men want to read about.
That's true.
The way it's presented for women is different from the way it's presented for men. And the world belongs to all of us. The world belongs to both men, women, girls, boys. So everything has to be presented in a way that everybody feels like they're being represented, included and seen.
That's
exactly
right. That's right. I know that you've been doing a lot of work underground about AI. You've been studying up on AI, and I'd like to speak to that before we go. Your work, studying about AI and looking at how to do media work, with it.
AI is very fascinating, but actually, if I may say, overrated. What AI is using is already the huge amount of information that already exists on the internet. So it's just bringing it together, and so it's like a kind of storage system whereby maybe you go to a vending machine and you ask for maybe a bottle of Coke, and you press Coke or soda, and it just falls out.
Right.
So it's inhuman. It will always be inhuman. But in the media space, it's fantastic. Just like the internet has been it has revolutionized media.
Right.
In every space, information is now at your fingertips. And don't forget that this is true for the girl child as well.
How so?
Yes, because she now has a lot more information than she's ever done. So think of a girl in Kano or Ebonyi, or even, let's say, Ilorin, who she doesn't have as much access to a good education as her male peers.
Yeah.
She probably has a phone, and all that information is at her fingertips. She can think of learning makeup. There's virtually nothing that you cannot learn on the internet.
That's true.
For me, the most important, like I had already mentioned, part of AI, in relation to the media, is the fact that it's so easy to fact check things. You will be shocked the amount of information you see in the media space that is all just fake. That is completely fake. They just join this, and you have a big, beautiful story, and before you know it, it's trending. 1 million people have seen it, and it's just false.
That's
and
true.
It's as traditional media, it's our responsibility to make sure that the public continues to get undiluted and real information. They can get fake news from everywhere else, but not from traditional media.
Thank you very much. I mean, we're wrapping up now, but I also want you to weigh in on two topical issues regarding period stories. The first is that we begin to push for menstrual leave for women with difficult menstruation. And we've had quite a number of these conversations on this podcast of women who have had very difficult menstruation, and it's just about time for us to begin to mainstream this aspect as well, so that HR organizations, HR departments and association can begin to look inwards. You've said that this is the millennium for women, and so we cannot afford to do it like our grandmothers were doing. It's only a period.
Yeah, so it starts with the women themselves. I'm happy that you use the word mainstreaming, because you can't have something that affects half of the population and it's not mainstreamed.
That's right.
I don't know where I heard this, but I hear that during major sports competitions, the Olympics are going on, they actually have condoms in the restrooms, in the male restrooms. So why can't if you're going to have tissue paper in any restrooms, why can't you have sanitary towels.
You touched on a big one. I'll let you finish.
And talking about menstrual leave, it should be a no-brainer. So why I said that it's about the women themselves is that women should not be shy about demanding for these things. We're talking about their health here. And who knows? If you have an office clinic and you talk about how you have cramps or you're just not feeling on top of your game, you can get immediate attention, rather than just keep quiet about it. And women in this matter must, cooperate with one another, because you have 10 women in an organization and only one is complaining about her period. Maybe she has endometriosis. Maybe she just has difficult periods. Maybe she has an iron deficiency. You don't even know. So you don't allow the men to say, "Oh, are you the only woman here? How come the other ones are not complaining?" The other women should speak up on her behalf. There's nobody that's going to do it for us. We have to do this for ourselves. And we have to demand it because we have a right to good health, even in the workplace.
We have a right to good health, even in the workplace. Fantastic place to drop anchor on this conversation today. I must thank you, Morenike Taire, for finding time to be here with us on My Period Stories.
It is an immense pleasure to be here at last.
I like the immense part of it. Thank you, too, for joining us on My Period Stories. Let's make this date again next week. I'm Funke Treasure. Bye for now.